It's the Australian Union's campaign update. Francis Leach here with ACTU President Michele O'Neill, and we're here to talk about how the federal election campaign is going and the issues for workers at the moment, Michele, the ones that are front and central. And this is an election about workers, probably more so than any election we've had in the last 20 years or so. The key issues, and one of them, of course, really raised to the top of the list this week was the rise in interest rates.
Yeah, hi Francis. And look, it's really tough for working people. The cost of living issues are enormous, and when you unpack that, it's about the cost of groceries, fresh fruit and veggies, meat are through the roof. But it's also the cost of housing. Rent is really, really tough on people. Childcare costs, education costs, all of these things are going up. And when we saw that inflation go up last week, it was 5.1%, which is big. But if you look at, they do this measure of what people spend on the essential items, the non-discretionary items, they call them, that was 6.6%. So it was even higher what people who have less money have to spend on the basics. And at the same time, we've had wages being flat for the whole time that this government's been in power, but now it's got worse than flat because the cost of living's going up and wages aren't. Workers' real wages have gone backwards, and that's in the first 6 months of this year, the average worker is losing $2,000.
So when you factor in the $2,000 hole in your pocket, with the start, only the start of interest rate rises, because this 0.35% interest rate is not going to stay static. We've heard from Philip Lowe, the Reserve Bank Governor. He said that this is going to have to be part of his strategy for the time being as inflation has galloped away. If you're on a mortgage and you're trying to pay your bills and fill your car with petrol, at the moment you really are feeling the hurt.
Look, the terrible thing about this is that with interest rates going up as well, there's no extra money to be found. So if you're already doing it tough, that just means you and your family have to go without. That's, people making a decision about not being able to afford to buy any meat, not being able to afford fresh food at all, fresh fruit and veggies, and having to, live off food that is, of course, cheaper, but also not as good. And that's really tough. It's really tough, people having to make that decision every day. And you can't not put the petrol in the car to go to work, because if you don't turn up for work, with so many people in insecure jobs, they don't have a job. So there's things that you just can't not pay for. And unfortunately, the things that get cut back on is then food. And that's a shocking thing in a country like Australia in 2022.
Well, it's unacceptable, basically. It's really unacceptable, given how wealthy we are and how much opportunity there is to actually make sure that people do have what they need and are working in an environment that's safe, secure, and pays them well enough to be able to pay their basic bills.
And Francis, it doesn't have to be this way. Like during the time of the pandemic, profits have gone up by 28%. So it's not that there's no money out there, it's just that it's not being fairly shared with working people. Companies are pocketing it. They're doing okay, particularly big business is doing really okay. It's just that we don't have the right laws and system and rights as workers to make sure that workers get their fair share. And government can do something about this. And Scott Morrison and his government have deliberately designed a system that keeps wages low and that makes sure workers are in more and more insecure jobs.
So that's interesting. So when people who are having conversations with their families and friends about this issue, as they start to think about who they're going to vote for the election, this is the thing they should be raising with them. If you're watching this, you're interested in the issues. You should be talking about this with your friends and family and getting them to make that connection that the reason why their cost of living is going up and not able to keep pace with that is because this government over 9 years, and they've said it publicly, show them the Matthias Cormann YouTube clip, they've said it publicly that that's been their strategy to keep wages low. If you're struggling to pay your bills, it's because they've made it that way.
Yeah, absolutely deliberate strategy. There is no accident about this, and that's vicious. That's vicious and it's unfair. And what we know is that if they were serious about wages going up, there's really practical things a government can do. And we know a government can act when they want to. Look what the decisions they made during the middle of COVID. They could support a lift in the minimum wage. They've refused to do so. And that's 1 in 4 workers relying on that. They could back in aged care workers' pay increase. Some of the lowest paid workers doing skilled jobs that are so undervalued, they're not backing in that claim of unions and that sector. And they could give public sector workers a pay increase and lead the way, and they're not doing that. But also, they don't have the basics right about the sort of jobs. You could back in the changes that would deliver more secure jobs for workers. And there's this really clear link about if you're in more secure jobs, then your capacity to win better wage increases goes up enormously.
So have that conversation with your friends and family as the election starts to become more of an issue around your dinner table or at the barbecue or at the footy this weekend. Michelle, you've been out and around the country, so you've been talking to workers all over, both in the cities and in regional Australia. What's your sense about how they're framing this election, workers, when they look at what's going on?
Look, I've just been in this week, I've been in Northern Queensland, Central Queensland, in Cairns, in Rockhampton, Gladstone and Biloela, and what I'm hearing in all those places, Francis, is that cost of living issue is just the biggest issue. People are really worried. They're worried now that, when they've heard about the interest rates going up and keeping on going up, and just seeing the prices. And everyone knows that short reprieve on petrol is just an election bribe, because it was only for 6 months. We're already a couple of months into it. It's going to end in a few months' time. And already petrol is still creeping up in a whole lot of places. And the cost is just, if you're in a regional part of Australia where you have to travel bigger distances, even to be able to do the shopping, all of those things add up. And of course you travel further for work and all of those things. So it's tough. Cost of groceries, people were telling me about $8 cauliflower, $6 cabbages, $5 lettuces. Like this is, can't believe that sort of money. So the other thing I was hearing from workers a lot was about people having to do multiple jobs, and there is so many workers now that they have to do 2, 3 or 4 jobs, not because they want to, but because that adds up to one job. I met Kane, who is a worker in the council depot in Biloela, and he was telling me about his partner, and she does 4 casual jobs.
4 jobs?
And she works in domestic violence support, she works in suicide prevention, disability care, and also in emergency support with anger care as well. So 4 jobs, 4 casual jobs to make up one wage.
4 vital casual jobs.
Think about how hard those jobs are.
Oh, absolutely. Just on that issue, before we wind up for this week, a big court decision on the issue of insecure work this week, and to our comrades in the Transport Workers Union who've been fighting this tooth and nail for so very long against Qantas, they keep getting results in the courts and keep being vindicated that the outsourcing of essential work and work that's there, so with Qantas ground staff, it's just not on. And the courts keep backing the Transport Workers Union on this, and they've done it again this week, just to show that insecure work does not have to be the only model for working in Australia.
A massive win by the TWU and those members at Qantas. This is the baggage handlers and ground crew that, under the cover of COVID, Qantas sacked 2,000 workers, many of whom had had a lifetime of hard work and loyalty and a career working for Qantas. There was no reason to do it. They tried to pretend it was about COVID, but the court twice now has vindicated what the workers and their union said, which is that really the reason Qantas did it was to deny them their rights to be able to bargain and take any industrial action and win a better deal. That was the deliberate reason that Qantas sacked these workers, not because they had to, but they outsourced their job to take away their rights as workers. That clear is the decision. 4 federal court judges, the union won the appeal this week to say that Qantas acted illegally to do it. But this is the same company. Alan Joyce and Qantas got more money.
I was about to say.
More money out of the federal government than any company did over the course of the pandemic, but without strings attached. Like, if you're going to support, and we support, companies that were doing it tough, and aviation had a tough time, but why weren't the strings attached? That if taxpayers' money were going to Alan Joyce and Qantas, that it was on the condition that workers' jobs were secure.
Yep, and it's another great victory for the TWU, and it just shows that when people act collectively, hold their nerve, and actually campaign for the things that they need and are entitled to, that you can get results. And that's why you should be a union member. Go to australianunions.org.au and find out about how you can become a member of your union. Michelle, thank you for being in this week. On the road again over the next 7 days?
Yeah, off to Perth, off to Sydney and then Perth. Francis, so looking forward to seeing all the members over there in Perth, and catch up with you again next week. Thanks everyone. Have a great week.
Happy travels, and don't forget also have a look down below. We'll put down a link on the page this evening, which shows you that you can join myself and Van Badham on Sunday for our debate watch along. So Van and I are going to watch the debate together, and we're going to give it our own particular spin. It'll be fun.
I look forward to that.
Get involved. We want you to tweet along and give us the best of what you've got. The link will be on the page. You'll go to australianunions.org.au, and we'll catch you for next week's campaign update. Bye for now.